I realized, I was like, I really want to create a dynamic of a work environment that, even though we're not family, but it's a family environment where we respect each other, we enjoy each other, we enjoy the work, and we believe in the work. So it shifted, and like I looked at like some of my volunteers, and like there were volunteers who were from right here in the community. Not all African American either, but just really dedicated to the work, enjoyed coming here, really put their forth. And like I had an opportunity to hire them, and it just shifted everything. Like once you started to kind of shift and bring your team together, I started with a coworker. We started the same day, and she has dealt with some of the same issues at her site. And like having her be like, Maya, things are going to be so great when you get to develop your team.
Mm. There's so many nuances that shape our view of the world and our own identity. And my heart smiles as I've known Maya Davis most of her life. What an honor to witness her grow into a powerhouse who's leveraged her own worldview into purpose. As director of Riverside House Museum, Maya's innovative approach is shifting the narrative of a singular slaveholding woman to a multivocal lens by collaborating with descendants of the enslaved families who lived and labored on the site she now leads, institutionalizing programming that bridges the past to the present in preparation for our shared future. Maya's love for genealogy and family history shaped her dedication to ensuring that diasporic voices are empowered in the workplace and seen and heard in content. Her personal values of family, truth, and compassion are ever present in every aspect of her work. Let's tune in. I am super excited about this conversation today. Welcome to She Chose Joy, Maya.
Thank you. Have a joy already.
Oh, yeah, like, so for those of you who don't know, there's always some tech something to challenge me, and so we've been having lots of interesting moments with tech, but I am glad to hear that you're here and that we are gonna move forward with this conversation. Technology is not gonna be a barrier for us to have this conversation today. It is just not happening.
Thank heaven.
No, not at all. So, what is new and exciting in your world, Maya?
Oh, new and exciting. I would say, any travels that I take, they're always exciting. I just came back from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And what was exciting about it is I've always flown into Fort Lauderdale to go fly somewhere else. So I've never stayed there. I've only done it in transit. So it was my first time seeing it, and it was really delightful. And it was at the same time as Juneteenth. And, like because Juneteenth isn't something that we traditionally celebrated in Washington, D.C., it was nice to go somewhere else that did have a long history of celebrating Juneteenth and seeing like just the different cultural things, enjoying some food. And we were there for a family reunion, which was a lot of fun. So that was new and exciting for me. And I just didn't know Fort Lauderdale had great beaches. So now it's a new destination for me.
Yeah, I haven't been in a while, but I used to like when I went to Fort Lauderdale, we would end up driving to Miami or different
Yes,
other
it's so close.
places around there, like Coconut Grove, things like that. And it was really great to be able to go back and forth. But how exciting is it that you were there around Juneteenth and got a chance to like really play in that space there?
Exactly. And, I've been to Miami and I just never even knew how close it was to Fort Lauderdale. It was like an information thing for me. And I'm like huge into geography. I just never thought about it. And then getting to like meet real people, you go to these towns a lot of times and you're like either in a hotel or, you're taking like the tourist spots, but to actually go to like real people's homes, I thought was really cool. And just to kind of see how people live in South Florida, like it's hot all the time, the things that, just sharing those stories about their personal experiences. Like one guy that I met worked at the post office and he talked about like how everyone at the post office starts at delivery. And he's like, it's so hot to walk from house to house. And just learning those different tidbits about people's experience was just really interesting.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And then, of course, with South Florida, which is something you're probably used to anyway, based on, where your family is from.
Yes.
Seeing lizards and things like that show up at any.
At any given time, there's iguanas aplenty. Although what I found so interesting is there iguanas were very like skittish around people. Like they would see people and they like take off running. Whereas like in the Virgin Islands, they're so accustomed to people. They're just like creeping by and it's like, hey, how you doing? Like, like it's a different thing. Like the animals are totally different. But it was just really nice to go in and see like banyan trees. I'm huge into nature now. I wasn't always, but like just being in a space and even the park that we went to, it had raccoons that would come out and like eat during the daytime, which is so weird for nocturnal animals. But
Yeah.
the park rangers didn't seem bothered by it. It seemed like their norm in this particular park. And so just being in nature and being around palm trees and a different vibe that's, different from what your everyday scenery is. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I'm impressed that you even know the name of trees.
I'm getting impressed by myself. I'm learning though, at work, at my museum, we have a gardener, a historic site gardener that's taught me so much about like plants and vegetables that I never thought I would know. And I'm even like going outside, like I find that I'm not as scared of bees as I once was.
Mhm.
They can buzz around and I'm fine. And just learning like which bees sting, which ones don't. It's really a lot. So I'm learning and
That is
retaining
so
the
exciting.
information.
You just taught me something because I didn't know that some bees don't sting.
Yeah, so there's bees, there's like carpenter bees where they're just really there to eat wood, essentially. They like wood, and so they're not gonna sting and they're just buzzing around. And then there's like your pollinator bees, they're there, they're just trying to pollinate and drop things off. And so, no need to be scared. They buzz and they're kind of annoying in sound, but otherwise they don't bother you.
Hmm. Yeah, but who's actually taking the time to look and say, well, let me see, what type of bee is this that's just landed on me?
I know someone who takes a chance. Someone who takes a chance because I also have a couple of friends who get honey. They have honey hives behind their house
Yeah.
and they have been stung, like get honey. So I guess it's just a toss up, but I'm just the person that's here to learn. I want to learn by trial and error.
And before we jumped on the call, you mentioned something else that you were really excited about.
I was nominated for a women's retreat, which at the time I didn't know it was a retreat. I just thought it was like a gathering of professionals in museum, library, and archive spaces, which I guess that would be just like a simple public history gathering. And it was just like, for people of color. And then I went to the intro meeting and it was all Black women. And that was like super cool for me because I feel like the one thing that I pride myself on is I feel like I'm a girl's girl because I grew up around a family full of women with like there's like always one male, one somebody always has one son, but there's like so many women and I've kind of taken joy in being around women and women friends. Like we just have, like a lot of people that we engage with over time. And I just remember like growing up and sometimes you're in high school and you'll hear someone say, I don't hang with a bunch of women. I don't keep a bunch of women. And I'm just like, that's such a bad statement to make. You just haven't met the right women. So, going into that space and then having like another woman that you respect nominate you to something like that. Like, we were talking about like how you just don't know, you don't think people think of you in that way. And so it's always exciting to receive and, receive that blessing and, just know people care about you and they respect the work that you do. They know the challenges that come with it. They may not get to tell you every day, but there's a way that they kind of show up. And so I'm excited to see what comes from this. I'm super excited.
I'm super excited for you. Like, I know there's that saying, I love that for you, but I honestly, like, I genuinely love this for you. Like you said, like, you never know. We don't really know who's really watching us. And
Hmm.
sometimes people that we respect and admire, we don't realize that they actually also see the value and the gifts that we bring. And so that's really
Right.
you were nominated by someone that you know that you have a great level of respect for.
Exactly. That's what I was just like, wow. Like I was just so like I'm in my mind, I'm like, how do I tell her thank you? Outside of just saying thank you. So I'm already like trying to think about like a handwritten note card because I've gotten into that. I love writing a little note here and there, even though my handwriting, I would love to learn calligraphy, but yeah.
One of my uncles was really good at calligraphy.
Really?
Yeah, my Uncle Francis was really good with calligraphy, precise and just well done. But yeah, a
Oh,
handwritten note like that, just even the thought of it or having an intention around it makes my heart boost because we've just gotten so engrossed in technology that we forget something as simple as a written note. And so
Exactly.
my guess is that she'll appreciate it whether it's in calligraphy or not because of
Yes.
the
The
thoughtfulness.
thought behind it. Yes.
And how amazing is it that you get to, like you said, you thought it was for people of color, but how cool is it that it gets to be with other Black women?
Black women. Yes. Yeah. And from all over, like, I mean, we had an introductory call a couple of weeks ago, and there were people from like Florida and other states. And I told the lady who was from Florida, I was like, I was just in Fort Lauderdale because that's where she was based. I'm like, I wish that we knew each other then, but it gives me a reason to come back.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you all, this retreat is all for women in the same industry as well?
Yes, we're all in the same industry, public history. So that would encompass like museums, libraries, archives, and we're all in different like phases of our lives. Like what I loved about it is like some people were like women with like advanced degrees that teach on the university level, but also teeter totter in like the public history space. We're just all, and it was like a lot of fun. Like in that first call, there was a lot of like silliness too, and that created joy. We were surprised. They surprised us and shared that we would each get like it was another mini grant to do a project of our choosing, or we could pull our resources together and do one larger project, which was so exciting. And someone like it was like this lady, she started like pop locking on the screen. It was just so much fun. And so there was like a lot of laughter and like it was just so joyous to be on that call.
You know I make up things, right? And so
Yes.
well, I'm getting excited just, I'm just imagining what it would have been like to have been a fly on the wall of that Zoom call,
Yes.
Google Meet, whatever platform you all use, and seeing all of that fully expressed energy come alive. And
Exactly. It was just so much fun. It was so much fun.
we're such creative people.
I know.
Yeah. And so with even thinking about that with us being creatives, and
Mhm.
one of the things that we had talked about too earlier was about family and
Mhm.
how you've been managing to play with the idea of like the dynamics in family and
Mhm.
how we come in so many different sizes, shapes, forms, and experiences.
Yes, we do.
You found a way to use that to help you see your team differently and bring in
Yeah,
that collaborative energy. So, wait a minute,
exactly.
before we go into that, can we just back
Okay.
a second? So, your work is in like public history and genealogy and all of those things. So,
Mhm.
we get into that family piece. Would you mind sharing how you even found yourself in this space? Like, how did you know that this was something that lights that fire within you?
Yes. So I don't know when the light bulb went off. I could just tell you, I can remember from young being in school, like which classes I had zoned out on, like math and science. I was definitely like, my goodness, I'm bored. I'm looking out the window thinking about something else. But I knew in college, I was just like, I cannot come in and like take like a major or something like just for a job. And
Mm,
so I was like, what is it that I like? I had to ask myself that question, like, what is it that I like? And like, I realized that I really enjoyed like history, but at the time that I admitted that to myself, I didn't know I liked history because of how I learned about history at home, which was like through funny stories that like my grandmother might have told about her mother, her aunts, her grandparents. I remember my grandmother like telling me a story about how her mom had a station wagon and the back popped out and she rolled out the car. And I thought that was the funniest story ever. But like just these historic moments and like my dad's family, they would have a reunion every year. And like every year, like my dad's mom and her siblings would get up and tell a historic story at our reunion. And like some people are like, oh God, here they go with those stories again. I enjoyed them. I enjoyed them. And that's when I realized that's when I liked history. But I knew that I didn't want to teach. So when I was going to Howard, there was a group of students. We were all in the same program, and like they were all like education minors. And in my mind, I was like asking myself, "Oh gosh, was I supposed to sign up to be an education minor?" It seemed like what everyone else was doing. Then I was just like, like I really enjoyed museums, and I went because I went to school in South Carolina first, in a school where I don't feel like they were great. They were a great school for like me at the time. It was like smaller. It was. I was kind of timid still a little bit. And so I wasn't like, as, forthcoming as I could have been like later. And they didn't really tell me about internships when I was there. So transitioning to go to Howard and like one of my professors said, "Have you had your internships yet?" And I'm looking like, "What are you talking about?" Like, what do you mean? And so meeting that one professor, Dr. Clark Lewis, I just love her so much. She was the one professor in all of Howard's history department that looked at people working in museums, archives, and libraries. So we just kind of met by chance because everyone else was like going to teach in a classroom or they were going to get their PhD and teach at a university. And I was just like, I did not want to do that. I just never saw that for myself. And I love museums. And I'm like, yeah, like I want to make that my career. And so I did. I got being at Howard, my first internship with the Smithsonian. And that was a really great program because that like predated like the African American Museum being a thing, but it was called like the Cultural Studies program or something at the American History Museum. And essentially they were doing the work of African American history at that time. So I got to work on some fun projects like genealogy projects, which I was interested in, African American genealogy, a Girl Scout program, a Brown versus the Board of Education program. And so just doing that and that professor telling me the importance of like getting my internships lined up, she was like, because this is the very beginning of your resume. If you don't have anything on your resume, you can't get a job. Her telling me that, and then like my first job out of college was working at I worked at my mom's hair salon first, but once I got the job that I was looking for. I was applying for jobs. It was at the City Museum of Washington, D.C. And I was like, well, what better person than me? I'm actually from Washington, D.C. These other people work here. They're not even from here. But I learned so much from those other people because even though they weren't from D.C., they had lots of museum experience. And they taught me a lot of things about like collections management, exhibitions, public engagement, like, like the importance of like being like welcoming the people coming to the museum and how people experience museums. And, I knew what I thought about the museum, like just being from Washington and what I thought was important. So I think that was helpful to them. And like knowing somebody who was really from the city and not like taking this guess of what they thought were the most important stories. So that was, I guess, how I eventually ended up where I am now. I'm, like now a director of a museum in a park space, which is very different. It's not like the Smithsonian, it's very different. It's a historic house museum and it exists in a parks and recreation parent organization, which is very different because then you're not always the priority because, you have to deal with people who deal with summer camps and different activities for seniors. And so you're a part of a pie. And so you're like doing a lot of advocacy for your museum and then also advocacy for the communities that you serve.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I often think of you whenever we go to a museum because you're like the one person in my life that knows and understands like curating museum exhibits and this, what makes how to come to a decision about what artifacts or what stories to tell and the display, like the journey of experiencing the museum and all of those things that we enjoy. And we sometimes forget how much work and detail and thought is behind it.
And the scenes, it's such a different world behind the scenes. And I had, when I graduated from graduate school, I had gone to GW and it was a very different experience because then, of course, my undergrad was like at a historically Black college and university. And then I went to this school, which was a private white institution historically, with people of color that were there, but not many. It was so different just in terms of being able to engage with people. And after I graduated, like maybe 2 years later, I was contacted and they had asked to bring together students of color from all different backgrounds and ask us what our experience was like. It was the first time anyone had asked me. And I told them it was so lonely. And the facilitator of that meeting is someone who's like still well respected and still works at the Smithsonian now. She was just like, well, she asked what we all wanted to do. And we were all saying, well, we wanted to, do curation. Like that's what everybody wants to do, essentially. And she was like, well, I'm going to tell you there's a need for people of color in administration because that's the way that you impact change. And that's the way that you can kind of do some decision making around the choices. So if there's things that you want to see happen in the curatorial side or the programming side, like you have the power when you're in administration. And when I left that day, I was just like, I still want to be a curator, but it's something that's kept like nudging at me, like, like see how this works. And so as I was like at my last job with the state of Maryland, I had asked someone who was the chief curator, but also very heavy on the administrative side, if she could mentor me and then also give me like small opportunities, like maybe like 5 hours or maybe 1 or 2 hours a week doing something. And that's how I started to learn and shift.
Yeah. How beautiful is it? So I don't know if you know this or not, but like serendipity is one of my favorite words because I love how things just kind of line up and become synchronized in these like accidental good fortune, how it shows up for us. And that's what I'm hearing. Like I'm hearing a theme of how you keep ending up in this space and you think you're there for one thing, and how someone else is placed on your path that prompts you with a question or a thought or something to lead you to your next and open up like your perspective just a little
Right.
more, just a little bit more. And just feeling like right now I'm just feeling partially because like I've known you a good portion of your life,
Yes.
one of my dearest friends. And so like in my mind, you're one of my nieces. And so like knowing, so just really feeling grateful that these people were placed on your path
I
to
know.
instill that in you.
It's so serendipitous. It's just such a great word. I agree. It is a good word. But yeah, like I didn't, I think at this age I could probably see it. Like I'm always asking myself, like, what lesson is this test trying to teach me? Because I do feel like in it, like every opportunity I've had, it's just been like you go in and you're super excited, and then you go in and it's like, oh, this is hard. This is hard. From like being here, like where I am now is a former plantation site. There's so many challenges, so many, and especially around like race and prioritization of like stories that we tell. It is like it's still a battle. Like like I think sometimes we take for granted, like with DC and Maryland and Virginia, or maybe not Virginia so much, but like DC and Maryland at least. There's not like this notion that it's Southern leaning, but sometimes there is a bit of that, especially because I'm like right outside of DC. But like there's this mindset about like what was important here in terms of storytelling, and that wasn't like enslavement. It's just like, no, that the population here and the population in DC are one, not only Black and could identify with the story, but a lot of them descended from sites like this one. And so it's like, what are we doing when we kind of suppress that story? And while I think people in this area find themselves or would consider themselves like super liberal and they're not like supporters of like a current administration, but they still kind of do some of those same actions in different ways. Is there still like a suppression? It just shows up different.
Mm.
So it can be a challenge, but I feel like there's been so many wins and we overcome in a number of ways. I've been excited to kind of see like the growth over time, like the ways that we've kind of incorporated those voices, whether that's through like a portrait commissioning, a family reunion, the formation of a descendant network. And we're currently working on an exhibit that will be permanent in the house. So we're super excited about that. So, I try to like lean in with that, but there, of course, there's still like a number of things that I would love to get resolved. But I know it's relationship building and talking things through. And so I'm like, this challenge is teaching me something for whatever's next.
Like, even the fact that you brought in that question, like what happens when we suppress those stories, and is a very important question to explore, and even noticing the many ways, whether it's subtle or not, that it shows up that we may or may not even be conscious of. And so that in and of itself, just even raising that question is another way that you are also impacting change there. And so thank you. Yeah, because even thinking about being in a space where there is, where it is a plantation site, and thinking about, what we're getting ready to lean into is like family and all of that. It's like the energy that's in that place,
Mhm.
families that were the stories about the families that were on that plantation. All of that matters. And
Yeah, it all matters. And It's so family driven anyway, just because of the stories of people that were here that knew how to read and write and document their family history. Like, I just got lucky. I'm like, I'm so into genealogy. And it seemed like the family who were enslaved here in the 19th century, they were interested in that too. They wrote about it. They wrote about their family in a genealogical way. A daughter published something in the 90s and handed, like, put it in mailboxes of places where she suspected. Like, she sent it to the post office and they put it in P.O. box areas all
Mm.
across the country in case any member of their family came across the book. And it did happen. There was like someone who contacted me and they're just like, well, my family member was sold south and we got the book and it was passed down in our family. And so what she did worked. And I was just like, wow, imagine if we all had something like that.
Oh,
You
yeah, like,
know?
I would love to have something like that with my
Exactly.
you my personal you are my afflu
I know, and you have a good family because I think because my both of my grandmothers come from big families. Like both my grandfathers oddly come from small families. Like my dad's father was one of four children. My mom's father was he was only child. So my grandmothers are the ones who came from big families. Like my dad's mom was one of 13, and then my mom's grandmother was one of 17. And I was like so fascinated with like these 17, children and 13 children and like how they were different, like who were their children, who were their grandchildren, like where did they live. And I don't know if you remember, there was an Oprah Book Club book, and I think it was called The Book of Hattie or something like that. It's been a while, if not 10 years ago or something like that. And like some people were just like, I thought it was okay. I love that book because Hattie had like 12 kids and each chapter was about her different kids. And I was like, I love that book. And it was so, I could relate to it, the style and format of how it was written. And because that's kind of how I think about my family. Like when we have our family tree, like we have a booklet with like each child and their history, their kids, their grandkids, and we list it out. And everybody is like super like demanding that their names are in that book, that is spelled correctly. They're like, oh, you misspelled such and such name that year. Like this year, you got to make sure you spell it right. And so it's just like so exciting. So being here, I feel like I enjoy the work so much because it encompasses something that I enjoy on a personal level.
Yeah, that sounds like such a fascinating idea. I might borrow that, like, to have a book representing um,
Yeah.
each person, like, that is a pretty cool idea. So,
That's why I love your family because y'all got a nice big group.
big bunch of nuts. What's that thing? Like, the family's like a box of chocolates, really. We never know what we're gonna get, right?
I know. I know.
So which makes me think about the story you told me about your little people that you used to draw. Would you mind sharing a bit about that?
And going back to these people, in St. Thomas, like having those big families, like when I was younger, if I got bored in class, those old composition books, I would like start to draw out little families, like little stick people, and they all had names. Everyone had a name. Like you didn't get to go on to the next page without a name. And there'd be like mothers, fathers, grandmothers. Like sometimes the grandparents would have like glasses. There'd be like baby carriages to the best that I could draw. And I wasn't even like a great artist. Like I can't draw, but everyone had a hairstyle. And I think that's because of the hairstyle. Like my mom working in hair and knowing you all so long, like somebody might have had a wave set at some point. I gotta find these books because I so want to send you a picture of it. But yeah, like I would draw it and like everybody had a name. And then like as time progressed, like people had full names. Like they had a first, middle, and last name.
This is so fun to me. And here's what like, well, first of all, I think that's the cutest thing, but it's another reminder of like how there was some part of you even as a child. You were expressing your interest back then in the way you were sketching out families and hearing you say, because I don't remember you mentioning that when we talked about it before, that each like the page wasn't going to be turned without a name. Like
Yeah, you
how
gotta have a name.
names they're identifying them and each person having their own space to be honored was so important to you,
Yeah,
even as a young soul. And so I just think this is like a beautiful reminder of when kids are playing and they're doing different little things, how they are actually expressing so many parts of themselves that
yeah.
maybe they don't understand yet and we don't understand yet, but how important it is. So
And let me tell you, it's so funny because my seventh grade teacher was the same as my eighth grade teacher. We had Mrs. Weber, and her son was an artist, and he came and he taught us how to draw, but he specialized in like drawing for like comic books and stuff like that. But we learned how to draw lips and noses. And I was just like, my people are gonna really look good now. Like he taught us how to draw lips and noses.
so we got lips, noses, hairstyles, glasses. Did at least one grandmother have some nylons at her ankles that
Nylon. I did, but
or wearing a muumuu or something?
okay, you gave it. I really tonight you're gonna have me go home and I'm gonna look. If I find anything, I'm gonna text you everything that I had.
Wow. So let's just like, so I'm listening, I'm hearing all of this. I'm hearing how even as the little person with your creative, let me tell you, these sound like the most innovative stick people that ever walked the earth. Okay. Let me just say
They
that.
were.
So hold it. Well traveled. Oh yes. Okay. Let's not leave that out. Yeah, and so just hearing like how important family is to you and telling their stories and all of these things, and then like how that all really fits beautifully into what we had talked about on our pre-call about how you play with those dynamics to help build your team.
Yep, I did because I came into like my job like it was I won't say the first time, like I think it's probably the second time I walked into a workspace and like found like the environment challenging. And like what was most challenging is I was walking into a space that was like a white space where people of color just never worked here. And so there was like no precedence for it. And I was just like, well, how'd y'all get away with this so long? Like, you're in Prince George's County, Maryland. Like, this just doesn't seem right. And I dealt with so many like microaggressions and like, questioning about like my skill set and like my education and like, had I ever managed a museum? Have I ever managed people? And I was just like, why am I even like bothering like answering these questions? Like, the people that hired me, they know. And so I realized, I was like, I really want to create a dynamic of a work environment that, even though we're not family, but it's a family environment where we respect each other, we enjoy each other, we enjoy the work, and we believe in the work. So it shifted, and like I looked at like some of my volunteers, and like there were volunteers who were from right here in the community. Not all African American either, but just really dedicated to the work, enjoyed coming here, really put their forth. And like I had an opportunity to hire them, and it just shifted everything. Like once you started to kind of shift and bring your team together. And when I started here, I started with a coworker. We started the same day, and she has dealt with some of the same issues at her site. And like having her be like, Maya, things are going to be so great when you get to develop your team. And like having like she's like a New Yorker, so she's like much more forward than I am. And so we're like yin and yang. And she always says sometimes we're in meetings and she'll tell people I'm not as empathetic as Maya. But it's like we kind of complement each other. And so having her say that to me, and I was like, yeah, like it will be better like when I do it. Cause like you just kind of inherit a team and you're trying to get to know people and give people a chance and everything like that. I believe in that wholeheartedly. And I know that I can't have like a team of all me's working here because then there's things that I'm great at, but then there's other things that I'm not. Like they aren't my strengths. And so like building out a team of people that have strengths that you don't. That's also a awakening moment where you're just like, you have to admit yourself, like, what is your strength and what is someone else's strength? And so like you have like this diversity in skill set and strengths and just like personal, like how people show up. And it is like such a family environment. And not to say that everything's like perfect every day. Like we have challenges and my team like will share things to me. And, I have an open door policy. And for the first time, I feel like my team believes it because like when you're like the head of anything, like you can tell people like, oh, I'm here, I'm always here, my door's open, but they have to believe it. And so because I know my team believes it, that lets me know that they like the open door policy is working and it is a family dynamic because not everything that they come to talk to me about is always something that I want to hear, and I'm open to that. So it's been great to kind of build out that family dynamic, and we just have so much fun, and we always look for an excuse to have cake.
You all are like the Golden Girls meeting for cake in the middle of the night in the kitchen table.
They did that on the Golden Girls. I forgot. Yes, they used to do that.
Meat for dessert of some kind. Maybe it wasn't cake, I'm not sure,
I
but
know.
they
but they wouldn't meet at that table in the kitchen.
Yeah, I love this. I love this because what I'm hearing is when you say they believe it, as far as your open door policy, is that you have developed a relationship where they actually trust you.
Mhm.
And so they trust that when you say it's an open door policy, that you mean it. And
Right.
that I know takes time and it takes a special skill, special intentionality. And I think this is really important, like in terms of like leading teams, leading families, leading in
Mhm.
any area of our lives, like being able to, like you said, acknowledge like
Right.
where are your strengths and where are some areas of opportunity where you can leverage other people's strengths to fill out the
Right.
gap, because many people do get frustrated when hire a team and it's not a team of me,
Right.
that looks just like you or thinks just like you. And
Mhm.
like that really resonates with me, partially because I just agree wholeheartedly that
Yeah.
diversity of thought and diversity of perspective and diversity of
Right.
experiences are just as important. It's not limited to gender or
Right.
just, I can't even talk.
Same here.
You know what I meant.
Exactly.
Like being able to help people feel like they have something to offer, like they were hired because they offered something, they had a skill set, a perspective, or something somewhere along the line. There was something someone saw in them that felt like they would be a useful part of the team. So why not play with it, get curious about it, and see how we
Exactly.
can all dance together? You know,
I agree. I agree. And it's just been so great. It is like so I feel good coming in here every day.
what do you think helped you stay committed to that vision?
Well, one, I think is a personal, like maybe OCD thing of mine. Like sometimes I'm just like, I don't like to start a project and not finish it. And that's what kept me at my prior place of employment for so long because I'm like, I'm in the middle of this project. At some point you like, you gotta grow. And for the first time, like when I left there, it was like, oh my God, we had just started like a commission for a portrait of Thurgood Marshall. And we were like in the throes of it. And I was like, I got this job. And I'm like, oh goodness, this is the first time I'm gonna leave. But I did, and they allowed me to continue to sit in on some of those meetings when I started here. And even my supervisor at the time at my organization now, he was like, "Oh yeah, you could definitely sit in on that. Like, it's probably going to be great to inform and shape the work that you do here, and thinking about that." And so it was really, really great.
Even asking for that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that it was that both that yes and where I can move on.
Still
Like,
have a
yeah.
impact. Yeah. And so that picture is like hanging and it's great. And, like that project got closed out. And so there's that. But then I think too, like a couple of things informed me moving here was one, I, wanted to cut my commute shorter. I, wanted to kind of get back into museums because I technically was at an archives doing like museum related work, but I wanted to be like in a museum environment and like get my foot wet and then like challenge myself with like some administrative things that I didn't have experience in, like preservation. I had worked with the Maryland Historical Trust for years and like, I know a lot about it, but it's like to actually do it in practice. It's like, okay, that's something very different. So it is kind of what has me here. And I've kind of also wanted to lean in on something that it impacted people like locally. Like I just felt like not that I wasn't community centered, but like just kind of knowing like the interests of people who are from this area just kind of drove me. And so like now I'm just like learning what it means to be like a community resource expert. And so somebody asked me to do a presentation for one of our trainings. Actually, my boss asked me in September, and he's like, "Can you do a case study about your work in community engagement?" And he's like, "You'll get an hour and a half, and you can do it any format you want over a mix of formats." And I'm just like, "Oh wow!" Like I didn't even think I was an expert yet, but okay.
Well, I'm glad you said yes to it, and yes, you are an expert in my world, and of course, my world's the only one that matters right now. You are my go-to expert. I see you like one of the things that when I love talking to you, I feel like I never leave a conversation with you without feeling like you help me expand in some way, and we have fun in
It's
the
like we have a good time. We have good
yes.
laughs. We check in. Yes.
And so I'm just thinking, I'm even going back to even thinking about like the fact that you all have that $3,000 grant that you mentioned and the many ways that you could use that. like even with your presentation, like being able to have the freedom to do it and design it any way that you like. It makes me
Exactly.
think back to that. Wow, if I had $3,000 grant to use towards something, would
But I do.
what would I do with it? Would I want to just use it all for like my idea, or would I want to use that and collaborate with others and pool our resources together? And which one would actually be most useful? And all of these other things. So, yeah,
I've been thinking, I'm just like, I hope I have this answer by Monday. I've been like back and forth in my head about what I could do, but then I'm just like, I didn't want to get too deep in the weeds of what I would do because I'm like, what if we decide to pull these resources together and do one big project?
yeah. And it'll be cool once you get to know each other even more
Right.
and see what kind of organically comes from that. Like,
That exactly.
yeah, and I personally love the fact that you all get to retreat because, that's something that I feel very passionate about as a retreat
Listen.
facilitator. So I am going to place a shameless plug here. So anyone who's listening, who's curating a retreat and you need a facilitator, by all means, think of moi, Melanie Foote-Davis. I would love to talk to you about how to have conversations around like healing through like opportunities to be well as we do the work that we love in whatever area that is, whether it's personal or professional.
I know it was important that we got those stick people in there. They were important.
Amen.
They matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me just ask you this. Is there anything that feels like really something that feels alive in you right now that you just want to share that you feel is important to add to this conversation?
Well, I guess, like just the sister circle. Just yesterday, I was with a group of friends and we sat and we talked and we get together about 4 times a year. And it just was so nice to do it. And so, like, I feel like the older I get, I really enjoy those spaces more and more. So I feel like this is a good sister circle too. This Joy podcast.
Yeah, sister circles, like community, having community,
Mhm.
village, whatever that looks like for, and it may look different with each person is incredibly important because wherever we
Exactly.
are, like, I feel like there are many times in my own journey where I felt like alone and then I recognize that, yeah, this is what I'm experiencing in this moment. However, I'm also aware that I'm not alone.
Exactly.
And my circles I have several circles like that, not expecting any one circle to be my everything,
Right.
um, has really been important too. Because it might be these two people that I get together and we have this one vibe that's really fulfilling for us. But then it might be another group of people over here that feels a different, or void, like an area that wants to be nourished. And so I really get a kick out of this awareness that it doesn't have to be one circle too.
Right. It's multiple circles. And the one thing I'm most proud of is I have someone who's a mentee who, when I first started here, like she didn't work for me directly. She worked in another department and she was so guarded and, had definitely taken in a lot of the negativity in terms of like the workplace gossip and everything. And like just seeing her shift and grow and like open up to me and another colleague and learn that there could be joy in this work. We don't have to be frustrated. And like she's now gone on to another organization, is in another position that I think she feels appreciated and has kind of seen her own growth. So just celebrating her. And this last week, she reached out to me and she had like a health challenge, but even her mindset around like her own health and things like that, seeing that grow, that is like really warming and being in community with someone that I just didn't even know. Cause like initially you're just like, oh goodness, this challenge is so negative. Like what's going on? But like just seeing that growth, seeing that, and then also having other people see you grow. Just being in the middle of the
Yeah.
spectrum with that is really a good place. That's been an exciting place for me I would say today.
Awesome. Awesome. And so speaking of that, like what are some of the practical ways that you consistently choose joy? And like you just mentioned several actually throughout this conversation. Is there anything that comes
Traveling is probably my greatest joy. I feel so happy. I feel like
to you?
so giddy, like going to get cake or something or ice cream. I'm like so happy when a trip comes up, even though I have anxiety around flying. I don't really enjoy flying anymore, but I know like the places on the other end of that flight. I want to see. So that like gives me a moment and I get so excited. But and I am that person. I'm like, oh, this would be great for rest and relaxation. And then I'm like booking up my calendar with all these things I want to see when I go to these places. But that creates joy for me. And like I've been watching like YouTube videos of different destinations and like thinking about like future trips and like just seeing like all these different like history things. Those make me really excited. Even in places that I thought I knew so well. Like I watched this whole video on St. Thomas and I thought I knew it inside and out. And some of the things the guy was sharing, I was just like, oh my goodness, I've been going there forever. And now I can go back and do something that I didn't do before. That makes me have joy. Getting together and having a good laugh is always great. It's
Yeah,
always because we're so silly.
family is
That's
good
a
joy.
good, yes, a good joy practice. I love getting together with friends or chatting on the phone and just laughing and joking. We just have such a good time. And then watching like my favorite show. Like I don't watch TV as much as I used to. So once I find something that I'm really enjoying, I'm just like all in. So I went back and I'm rewatching High on the Hog in prep for my trip to Charleston.
You know what? It's in my queue and I still haven't watched it yet.
You have to watch it. It's so good. It's so good.
It's on my list of things to watch.
Yes, I enjoy it thoroughly, so thoroughly.
Yeah,
So that's been my joy is watching that. That and Survival of the Thickest. Michelle Buteau.
she is hilarious to me. Okay.
She's so funny. She's so funny.
Yeah, I binge watched that series, both the first and second season, because she's hilarious to me.
Yes, I love that. And then I don't know if I shared this with you. A couple of months ago, a good friend of mine, every now and then we'll go to a book event together. Like that's our space as we do a book event. And she invited me to go see Victoria Christopher Murray at Alfred Street Baptist Church. And you don't really know what authors are like until you go see them in those spaces. And she was hilarious. And she was like promoting a new book, Harlem Rhapsody, which I'm like still waiting to get. I'm still on the waiting list at the library. It's been weeks, it's been months now at this point. But going to see her was so good. And I just didn't realize like how much it was going to fill my cup. Like it was just like such a good energy. I'm like, I got to go see her again.
I'm gonna have to look her up.
Look her up. If she's ever in your town, go see her. It was just so much fun to, just listen to her talk about her book.
Oh yeah, well thank you for sharing that resource. I can
Yes.
explore, right? Yeah.
Explore. So I'm waiting to get my book. I hope it comes soon because it's about the Harlem Renaissance. I love that's like my favorite historic moment to read about fictionally.
Gotcha, gotcha. I've been enjoying Kennedy Ryan's latest book, Can't Get Enough.
Well, I have to put that down as a book on my list.
Yeah, it's like the third part of a series. She does a really good job. Like I love the way that she can talk about things that people are experiencing in life and still like from a perspective to help you really consider
Yes.
what it may be like for them and infuse humor and romance and all of these things like the way that she skillfully does all of that to help you really experience like the full expansion of life, if you will, that
Yeah.
can be happening and this can be happening too. It's not just this or that, but we could be
Right.
going through something like this current one. Someone is dealing with Alzheimer's, a loved one who has Alzheimer's, but there's really having that sister circle of support,
Mhm.
still being able to tap into your joy, still being able to feel like the full range of emotions that comes with that,
Yeah.
the sadness, the grief, the all of that. Like she just does a beautiful job with that.
Oh.
And I know one of her books, Before I Let Go, is word on the street is going to be a potential, I think, Netflix movie. So I'm waiting for that too.
Ooh,
I mean,
that's so
yeah.
cool. Yeah, I gotta check that out then. I gotta try that. I'm gonna look that up. Text me the name of it.
Okay. I sure will. I will. I will do just that. So, as we prepare to close, what are you grateful for in this moment?
Wow. I'm grateful for life and health. As I get older and I'm taking these trips to the doctors and stuff like that, I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for family and friends. Like I just spend so much time with all. And so it's just really nice to be surrounded in a space of love and joy and, just being able like even like my grandmother being like 88. Like I'm like super grateful for that. super grateful for, just being able to enjoy life. I'm super
Wait,
grateful for that.
yeah, she's
Yeah,
8. I
this
don't think
that
I realized she was
yeah,
88. Oh my goodness.
yep, she's
Okay,
88.
so Auntie 8.
Yes,
Okay.
she's 88.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you
So
for
grateful.
sharing that because even like you said, spending time with family, and that's that thing. Like sometimes we spend time in text messages and things like that, but I know that you actually spend time
Yeah.
like physically present, phone calls or things like that where you're actually fully present with family. And that's
Exactly.
always, yeah, that's always beautiful to witness. And so, Maya, thank you so much for coming to play with me on She Chose Joy.
Yay.
Really appreciate you being here. And what's if people want to like connect with you, is there a specific platform that's easier to find you on?
I am on Instagram at Madame Editor in Chief, and that's to me the place where I connect with the public the most.
Okay. Madame Editor in Chief. Okay. I'll make sure I put that in the show notes. And again, just thank you so much for coming to hang out with me and play with me in this space. I've been looking forward to it all day, and I'm just really excited to have you here and to share you with my community. And so there you go. Thank you
Thank
all.
you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So thank you all so much for joining us for another episode of She Chose Joy. I know that Maya dropped some gems or maybe even expanded your perspective. And so I'm curious to know, what are some of the things that you're taking away from this episode, whether it's your perspective on history and your own family history or something else. Maybe it's about your sister circle, your community. Whatever it is, we'd love to hear from you. And so remember that your freedom lies within your decision to say yes to who you are, yes to what you stand for, and yes to what you want. And so will you stand for leaning into what brings you joy today? Will you say yes to connecting with your own family history and maybe being more curious about that? So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.